All right, good evening, everyone. Super excited for day two now of the Six Figure Side Gig Challenge. If you were here yesterday, do you want to type in the chat what your biggest aha moment was? Type in the chat what your biggest aha moment was. If today is your first day joining us, do me a favor and type a one in the chat so that I can say hello, hello. Tonight's gonna be a lot of fun, okay? Because yesterday we spent the time, and by the way, if you missed yesterday, you definitely want to go catch that replay. We talked about why buying businesses is the shift that you want, how to hit big goals. We talked about how to hit big goals, how to basically raise your floor, why business buying is basically that like cheat code, if you may, to hitting some really, really massive goals. How many of you here did your homework from yesterday? If you did your homework, you know how we do here. Like the chat has to be active. I can't just talk to myself. How many of you did your homework? If you did your homework, type a two in the chat. Type a two in the chat. If you went online and looked at businesses, if you were able to write down what your what your goals were based on what we talked about yesterday, type a two in the chat. All right, so today I have the pleasure of having Michael Byers with me. Let me add him. Okay, so hi Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good, good. Good evening. I'm so glad that you're able to join us today. So, for those of you who are brand new here, I'm going to start by saying, hi, I'm Chiagozie Fawole. I'm your host. I'm also a pediatric anesthesiologist right here in the Syracuse area. But I have with me this evening Michael Byers, who is an entrepreneur. He has been working on, actually not just entrepreneur, an investor and business owner who has been buying businesses for over 20 years. And we're going to get into his story in a moment. But what I'm going to sort of like preface things by saying is if you don't have your pen and paper, please go grab your pen and paper. Take your phone with you, take your laptop with you because we're going to keep going, but you're going to want a pen and paper. There are no slides. Today is going to be paying attention and grabbing gems. So grab that pen and paper. When you have the pen and paper, type a three in the chat. Okay, so Mike, good evening. Good evening. Um, would you mind just like sharing with the audience sort of like who you are, what you do, kind of like the beginning of your backstory, then we'll dive into it.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate the opportunity to be here at Chiagozie and speak with you and the audience. So I grew up in a small town in South Carolina, about 12,000 people. Didn't really have much growing up, but we had what we needed, but probably not what we wanted, right? Grew up in a little single wide mobile home, no heat or air till I was probably 16 or 17. Um, Ended up doing well in school, got a full ride to Clemson University for chemical engineering. I got there, and after about a year and a half there, I started a small little tech company and decided that I was going to drop out of college. My mother and father did not like that, but I seen a different path than they had taken, right? I dropped out of school. I pursued the tech company, grew it. I bought a company when I turned 21. Um, when I bought it, it was doing about $250,000 a year gross, about 50 grand a year net. Within the first 3 years, I was doing over $3 million a year gross, a little over $1 million a year net. I operated that for about 10 years, sold it, and went and bought another company. This time I bought a failing company, figuring, oh, well, I've already done this. This should be easy, right? No, it was horrible. So when I bought it, we were losing about 4,000 a week. And I sold it 13 months later, and we ended up netting over $1 million in that 13-month time period. After I started doing that, I started understanding a lot of these small businesses are having the same problems. So during this time, I had bought some real estate. At that point, I had about 40 or 50 properties. I was having problems with the property management company. So I went and bought a property management company. I bought that. And I started buying other ancillary businesses around it. I bought a heating and air company. I bought a plumbing company. I bought a forestry mulching company. I bought a construction company. I bought a site work grading company. I bought a concrete company. I bought everything that I was using, right? Um, and as I was doing that, I kind of noticed the same things. All these businesses in the 0 to $300,000 a year bucket, they have the same problems and issues. All the businesses in the $300,000 to $1 million a year bucket, they have the same issues. Everything from a million to about $5 or $6 million, they have the same issues. So after I started working through that stuff with these companies I was buying, I started buying stuff outside of the real estate realm. Now I've got 23 companies now under management, and we'll do about 135, $140 million a year.
Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. That was an intro. That was an intro. Um, so you mentioned that in the different price brackets or in the different revenue brackets that you notice different things. Today, I want us to really focus on what it is that you look for when you're buying a company, how you filter these deals, how you decide on what kind of a business you would buy and which ones are not worth your time. Yesterday, I spoke with them about like how the numbers in real estate compare to to those in acquisitions. They saw the discrepancy between, say, buying a short-term rental and making 30K profit, which is not shabby, versus buying a business and with the same amount making like $172,000 in profit. So today I wanted us to sort of like just really just focus on what makes you say, you know what, I'm gonna buy this business, but this one is not my target right now. What are your criteria for looking at businesses and for deciding that, you know what, I'm gonna go for this one?
And a lot of it has come from experience, making
Mhm.
bad decisions or, you know, looking at a whole lot of deals. I mean, I'll look at 3,000 deals a year, but for me, I'm going to buy something between 1 and 7 million bucks.
Okay.
It's going to have at least 10 employees. It's going to be in business 10 years or longer. It's going to net 25 to 30% at minimum profit, and there's a lot of other things that go into it, but it's deal by deal basis. But those parameters there are non-negotiables.
Yeah. So let's start with the 1 to 7 million. Why 1 to 7? Let's start with why one. Why is the floor? So guys, yesterday we talked about the floor and raising your floor. Why is your floor that they have to be making at least $1 million in revenue? Let's start with just that first piece.
So if they're not doing at least $1 million in revenue or at least $1 million in sales, there's not going to be any profit left over after. If you're going to have to get a loan, there's not going to be anything left over after you pay the loan. Also, that $1 million is a good floor because it's too expensive for chucking a truck. The guy that maybe it's him and one of his buddies are going around cutting grass, right? He can't afford $1 million company. So you weed out some of the competition there. It's also too inexpensive and it's not spitting off enough cash flow for like private equity, family offices, hedge funds. They're not going to buy it because it's not big enough for them. So it's a good spot. That's why, I say that $5 to $7 million range is where I normally like to be because if after you get to seven, you're netting 2.5 million bucks a year. That now becomes appetizing for the hedge funds, family offices, private equity, all those type guys, right?
Yeah,
So I'm shopping in that little spot there in the middle where nobody's really shopping right now.
that's true. That is
That's
actually very
that's
true.
the sweet spot.
Yeah, and what you say there is I mean I've seen so I had worked with a group a little while ago and they're shopping in the 20, their minimum at the time was like 20 million in revenue. But one thing that kept happening was that we kept getting outbid because the competition there is pretty
Yep.
fierce. And that's when I was like, that's why Mike says stay
That's
down
it.
here.
That's it. There's really no competition.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
actually pretty true. That's
Yep.
actually very true. So the floor is 1 million, but someone will say, "Well, I'm getting started with this thing. Like, I'm afraid to go for 1 million. Like 1 million sounds like a lot of money to start with. Can I just start with like chucking a truck?"
Right. You can, but the problem is, let's do the math, right? If if you buy $1 million business right now with rates and all that stuff, it's going to cost you $160,000 a year roughly for debt service.
Hmm.
If the business nets 25%, that's 250,000. Your take home is going to be $90,000 a year after debt service out of that business. Now,
Hmm.
granted, that goes up to 250 after the debt's paid off, but that's 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you cut that number in half, right? Let's say you go buy something for $500,000 a year. Now, your net profit is going to be 100 and a quarter, but your debt service at that point is going to be 80. So now you got $40,000 left over, and you might as well go to work at the Chick-fil-A because you're going to make the same amount of money, right?
Get a nice side gig at Chick-fil-A, work the lines,
Yeah,
maybe stand
yeah.
there, take some milkshake orders.
Say my pleasure.
You're right. You'll be off on Sundays.
That's right. That's
You'll be
right.
off on Sundays. All right. So criteria number one was a revenue range of 1 to 7 million. The
Yep.
second thing you said was 10 years in business or more for those taking notes. So why 10 years in business?
I want something established, right?
Hmm.
I'm looking to buy stability. If I wanted if I wanted something that wasn't stable, I could just go start something, right?
Yep.
But that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for cash flow day one. I'm looking for somebody that's established in the community. I'm looking for, you know, somebody where if you say, "Oh, I'm looking for a plumber in Syracuse, New York." Oh yeah, go talk to Bob Smith Plumbing, right? So I'm looking for that. And the average startup business, 95% of them fail in the first 5 years. Less than 10% of acquisitions fail in the first 5 years. So my way of thinking is if 95% of startups fail in the first 5 years, most of these are startups or were startups. If I get double that time frame out of it, I got a pretty good chance of it continuing on, right?
Yeah.
Once again, I'm buying stability, right? I'm not buying random stuff. I'm only buying what works, what's stable.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So yesterday we talked about the concept of, an object in motion stays in motion. An object that is at rest will stay at rest until you exert force on it, and how it's so much harder to do a startup. Um, I've also found that the ones that are still very early, they're usually hiding something.
Yep, because they're running, they're shoestringing it along, right?
Right. Right.
So
So 10 years or more in business. And then you said 10 employees or more. Why that?
yeah, I'm looking right back to exactly what
Stability.
we're talking about. I'm looking for stability, right?
Yep.
You know, I'm looking for something to where if one or two people quit when I buy it, you know, uh, I hate to lose anyone, right?
Right.
But I don't have to shut the door.
Hmm.
If I buy something with 15 people, one of them quits when I buy it, or one of them ages out soon after I buy it, you know, probably we can kind of juggle the stuff around and we can make it work, right?
Yeah.
If I buy a Chuck in a truck and he's got one employee, and when I buy it, he decides he's going to go get his job at the Chick-fil-A, now I'm in a bad spot.
Yeah.
I just bought a turd sandwich, you know,
And
and we
then
all know what those taste like.
the fourth thing you mentioned was that you like to see profit margins of 25% or
For
more.
sure. Yep, for
Why,
sure. And I
why that?
like that because, if you're going to carry debt on this, debt's going to eat up normally about 15% of it,
Hmm.
15% of the net profit. So if I buy something with 12% net profit, it nets it. But by the time I have to pay debt on it, I got to come out of pocket for $60,000 a year to run this, you
Yeah.
know, $800,000 a year company, right? It just the numbers, the math doesn't math,
Mm-hmm.
right? The
Mm-hmm.
numbers don't make sense if it's not netting at least 25%.
Makes sense. Now, one thing that I know you also look for is a quarterback. Can you talk about the role of having a manager or somebody in place?
Absolutely. I'm not going to buy anything without a manager. In my world, I call it a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
They're going to be able to operate the whole business. I either want the old owner to stay on.
Mm-hmm.
That's the dream scenario, right? But if not, I'm looking to promote that number two guy to the number one position if the old owner has to leave. You know, they've got to have a strong second person in place or a strong manager in place. If not, it's just not a good deal, right? I don't, I've got tons of experience in doing the stuff that I do, but in that specific niche industry and that specific business, by knowing, what they do on a day-to-day basis, that person has way more knowledge than I do, right?
Yeah.
So, once again, I'm buying stability. I'm buying that knowledge. I'm buying that, for lack of better terms, that person, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm buying the stability that they can offer and give the company. They know how things have been run. My purpose is never to come in and upset the apple cart for when I buy a company. I want everybody to stay. I want everything to be just like it was. And then I want to slowly do things to make it better, right? I'm not looking to come in there and kick the hornet's nest.
Mm. Now, you just touched on something about the industries that you buy in.
Hmm.
Um, so some people are, and you guys can type in the chat. If you were sitting here thinking to yourself, okay, Chiagozie, like, but what industry should I buy in? Like, I only know a few of you are doctors here. Like, I only know medicine, or I only know this. How do I pick an industry? If you were thinking that, type a three in the chat. Let me know who I'm talking to tonight. If you were thinking that, because Mike just mentioned that he bought HVAC, he bought plumbing, he bought property management, he bought this, he bought that, right? If you were thinking, but how are you able to do that? Like, do you go learn HVAC? Do you go learn plumbing, Mike? How are you able to manage that?
No, so that's why the quarterback is so important, right? You got to have, you're building a team is what you're doing,
Yeah.
right? And just like a football team, your quarterback is your main player, right? You have to have a strong quarterback. I've got HVAC company, a plumbing company, a construction company. I don't have any of those licenses.
Mm,
You know, the quarterbacks hold them.
yeah. Anytime I hear you say that, it kind of makes me realize that so the real job for anybody listening, or for any of us, honestly, is being good at finding companies that have good quarterbacks. That is the actual job.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's it. Yep, you've got to be able to. Quarterback has to pass the sniff test, right?
Mm. So so now I was thinking that, let's maybe put this into action. You have that tool, big deal machine. Maybe you can show people how you search and maybe do some filters. So guys, remember how we did yesterday? Type in the chat what city you're in, or what state. Actually, put what state you're in. Let's do states. Type in the chat what state you're in, and and let's see how Mike actually filters his. Okay, so Maryland got number one. Maryland got two votes to start. Love it. Okay. All right. And Houston makes an entrance. Again, Houston always shows up. All right. Maybe you can share your screen so you can drive
All right.
multiple
Did you make
people.
it where I could?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. All right. Sweet.
So Mike has this software that he built for his own. He built for his own company. Basically, his team uses it to source deals for him. It scrapes it scrapes 847. I think I got it right this time. Eight,
847. You got it.
eight,
You remembered it.
yes,
That's
800.
your that's your that's your piece of useless knowledge,
It scrapes 847 websites. every 4 hours and basically loads onto one platform, deals from those websites. Um, and so basically that's where he does his search from. At the end of this, I'll tell you guys how you can get access to it. It is a paid tool. It retails for $800 a month. I'll tell you that up front. But at the end of this, I'll tell you, what how you can get access to it. So, let's see.
All right. So in Maryland, for the first one, I just put in $400,000 worth of cat. To start with, let's go look and see how many deals are available in the U.S. today.
Mm,
15,653 deals
mm.
in the U.S. So if you can't find something out of all them, I mean, let me spare. And I want something that's going to cash flow, let's say 400 grand a year. In Maryland, there are 8 entries that cash flow 400 grand a year or more. Um, that's not a bad deal if you're in the construction industry.
Mm. 25 years old, cash flow 2 million.
Yep,
Revenue, yeah, that's
almost
decent.
7.5 if you're in that industry. If you're in the
12.
paint industry, this doesn't look bad either. Uh,
Mm,
Let me back this down to 300 grand. See what we got. We got a little bit more there.
okay.
All
Yep,
right, let's
19.
go.
So as you're looking through these guys, remember the five criteria. So number one, revenue 1 to 7 million, 10 years or older, 10 employees or more, and about 25%, roughly 25% of profit margin. So you see the profit margin in the cash flow. So the asking price is there, then the cash flow is listed. That's the money that you get to take home before your debt service. And
This is a good
then
deal here.
oh, that's okay.
HVAC company serving Maryland, Virginia, and DC. They want 3.7 as cash flow and 1.4.
Nice.
That's a pretty good deal.
That's a good one. That's actually a good one.
Yeah. Owner finances, he's willing to finance
10%.
375,000. Yep. I like this.
Mm,
They don't put a whole lot of information there, but if any of you guys are in that area, I would I would definitely hit up Erica here
mm-hmm,
to see what the deal is with this. And here's one thing that you guys all have to understand and realize. Every time they allow you to look at a business, they're going to make you sign an NDA. I mean, it's just what you got to do.
yeah,
So, you're going to have to sign an NDA um, every time you get information on any of these businesses.
yeah,
So go ahead and prepare for it.
yeah. So Adewale, you were asking, how do you know if the information is true? You start by getting the information first, looking through it, and then at some point during the process, and we'll get to talk about timelines and numbers tomorrow. But at some point during the process, you do what's called due diligence. So that due diligence phase is when you go in and dig in and actually see if what they're saying is true. Spoiler alert, most times it's not exactly as they put it on the website, but at least you have to start from somewhere, right? You
I look
wouldn't
at
know if they're
3,000
saying
deals a year, and I'll do on average six or seven. I'll buy on average 6 or 7 deals a year. I have never in my whole career had a deal that I have looked at that I have said, all right, these are the numbers to start with. And at the end, those numbers were exactly the same. Never, not one time. So they're always going to be different.
Yeah.
Um, I know somebody put in there Houston, but if anybody's close to Dallas, this looks like a pretty good deal. Commercial glass installed over
Mm,
$7 million in backlog. They're netting 960. They want 3.5 million for it. Got 19 employees.
that sounds so good.
Yeah,
Just
that sounds like a good
3.5.
deal. Um,
That optical practice. Oh no, it's just 3 employees. Never mind.
yeah, it's too small,
I saw the optical practice. I was like, oh, those numbers look good. There's a reason they only have 3 employees.
right? If any of you are into music, this isn't a bad deal. 10 employees, a guitar store. I don't like guitars, but um, I don't know about the employees here, but medical device and service company, that doesn't look like a bad deal there either. Um, Flag and banner manufacturer, that's a pretty good deal. They got 15 employees. That's pretty strong.
The surgical practice. I think we saw that one yesterday.
Yep. Got that. Here goes the furniture and lighting company.
Mm.
Not a whole lot of rocket science going on there,
Hmm.
you know. Uh,
I like those ones that are like you really don't need any specialty,
yeah,
any
me too.
specialty knowledge.
Me too.
So we had Maryland, Maryland, Texas. Who else? Who else has one more place that they want to check out? What's MJ? I think you put a typo in there, Catherine. New Jersey. Okay.
New Jersey. Let's see what we got. 42 of them.
Nice.
I like this. The
Mm,
landscape design and construction maintenance company.
yep.
I think they're asking a little much for it, but I still like it.
So they were always asking if you get a lawyer to do the digging for you during that due diligence phase while you're searching, Mike. During that due diligence phase, you have both an accountant and an attorney, and yes, you get to pay them. So you have to plan to spend money to on professionals to do that digging. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, you're gonna have to pay that attorney, you're gonna have to pay the CPA. Normally I would allocate normally 20 grand to something like that.
Yeah. This is New Jersey.
Here goes a trucking company. That's not a bad deal. And trucking's never going out of business,
Yep.
you know? So 25 employees. Uh, Commercial construction company. They
Mm,
want 2.1 for it. It's cash flowing 1.2.
that's pretty sweet. And you're making four.
Yep. That's a pretty good deal.
That's a good
Anybody
one.
that's around New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
I really like that one.
Yeah, that's
If
a
those
really
numbers are close. There goes the counseling services. If any of you are in the counseling business, it's a
good.
little high on the ask, but there's decent number of employees. That business is never going away either.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Nice. So So one question in the chat here is, what do you have the accountant do for you?
So to start with, I'm going to analyze the deal. If it passes my sniff test, I'm going to send it to the CPA.
Mm-hmm.
And I want them to look at it and make sure it's a good deal. I want them to shoot holes in it. My job, as when I'm buying businesses, my job is to disqualify these deals as soon as possible,
Mm-hmm.
right? The quicker I can disqualify it, the quicker I can move on to something else. The only things that I buy are things that I can't disqualify, right? I'm looking for somebody else to shoot holes in this deal. The ones that we can't shoot holes in are the ones we buy.
Nice. Oh, hey, Arinze, welcome. Um, so yeah, so tomorrow evening we'll spend a little time talking about just like looking at P&Ls and like what documents that you ask the brokers for and how the financing works with these things. But today was really just to kind of hone in on that on the buy box, on kind of what the criteria are, what criteria you use. And I know one of the things I kind of have to remind myself, because here's the thing, okay? I'm gonna say this, but don't take it the wrong way, Mike, okay? In our world, we we our crop of people are notorious for thinking that they are smarter than the buy box. We like to see how like everything you just said doesn't apply to this one deal because this one deal is special. What do you say to that?
I say, I'm not your mother or your father, so I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you I built the buy box around my mistakes, right? Every time I made a mistake and I lost money doing a deal, or I made a mistake and something happened, I added more criteria to the buy box.
Yeah.
So you can do what you want to. All I know is me and my analyst, we're not going to buy outside that buy box because every time that I don't want to say every time, but some of the times that we've bought outside the buy box, I mean, it's been a bad deal. I bought
Yeah.
deals that I've had to close. You know, they were outside the buy box. Imagine that. Because I was trying to fit the square peg into the round hole. Oh, that doesn't apply on this deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
It did. I just wasn't smart enough to listen to myself, right? So, at the end of the day, I haven't bought anything I've lost money on in over 11 years now.
Wow.
And hope I don't. But if I do, I'll change the criteria for the buy box again.
There you go.
Right? I know that the businesses in that meet those parameters, they just work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times there's so many safety measures that are put into place by the buy box. It's tough to squirrel them up.
Mm.
You know, you gotta really, you either got to be a real knucklehead or you have to want to squirrel it up to get it
Yeah.
squirreled up.
And there was someone that said, and I forget who it was, but the person, and I think you actually said this shortly even after I heard that, and it was that, you're doing your first deal. You want to do your first deal in such a way that you get to do a second deal.
Absolutely. Because if you do a deal and it turns out bad, you're probably done. You don't want to do that again,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So, for me, it's and for all of my students, it's important to do it right, not only the first time, but every time, right?
yeah,
Because when you don't do it right, guess what it does? It costs you money.
yeah.
And nobody's here to lose money, right? Nobody's wasting their time coming and hanging out with us tonight. We're cool, Chiagozie, but we're not that cool.
Not that cool. All right. We're going to take a couple of questions. We'll take a couple of questions in the chat. But before we delve into the questions, I know that a couple of you are thinking to yourselves, okay, um, I think I want to do this. I'm pretty sure that I would like to do this. If that's you, if you're thinking, you know what, I think I actually want to get a business sometime within the next year, type a five in the chat. Type a five in the chat. Excellent. Okay, I'm seeing a number of fives. Okay. If you're thinking, you know what, I really want to make this a thing, right? Not just buy the first one, in the next 1 year, but actually grow this into a substantial portfolio. I brought Mike here so you don't just see, the startup phase of this. You see like what can happen after 20 years. He just told you his businesses make a revenue of 135 to 140 million dollars annually. Right? Some of us will only want just a fraction of that EBITDA, even as our annual revenue at this point, right? So if you're thinking that you want to do this, you may now be sort of your mind may be churning, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your mind may be churning and saying, okay, I think I would like to do this, but I wouldn't mind having some guidance when I actually have a deal in hand. If that's you, type a six in the chat. Type a six in the chat. If you're thinking, if I have a deal in hand, I mean, I understand I know where to search for deals now. I understand, the buy box, but I'm sure that there are like some nuances that show up when you've actually gotten the documents from the people, when you're actually going through their financials. Okay, I'm seeing a couple of sixes in the chat. Okay, very good. So if you would like me to sort of share with you what we have put together just for those who want extra help, those who will want to be meeting with Mike every week. So the reason we had this at 8 p.m. is because he was meeting with the folks in the inner circle er,
Gotcha.
earlier. So if you would like to hear sort of what that's about, do me a favor and type a seven in the chat. And if anybody wants to hear about it, then I'll talk about it. Then we'll go into Q&A. So we will have a Q&A, but type a seven if you want to hear about, how Mike works with people and basically what we've put together or what we're putting together for the next season to help you with your next deal. If you want to hear about it, type a seven in the chat. Okay, I see 1 7. I was about to say, oh, nobody wants to hear about it. All right, fine. We'll just do Q&A and be done. All right, there we go. Okay. So a few people want to hear about it. Okay, so basically, um, we have put together, well, I'll give you a very quick backstory. So as of this time last year, no, we're in December now. As of, let me just say, as of November last year, okay? Mike had a coaching program before, but which he shut down because if you know Mike, he loves to do deals. He just told you he does like 6 or 7 deals a year. That is what he actually loves to do. Okay. So I happened to be hosting a program and I was like, would you mind coming to speak? And I was like, sure, I'll speak because he also likes to help entrepreneurs. And he came to speak, but while we were speaking, or while he was speaking, people were asking, is there a course? Is there a class? Is there a thing? And at the time, the answer was no. I just brought you here to just open your eyes and let you see what's possible. And you can go figure it out afterwards. But in a few days, I realized that's not really helping people. You just now just like open their eyes and then just let them be. Sure. So I reached out to Mike and I said, "Hey, would you mind basically hosting a training program for our people?" And together, we put together Catalyst. Catalyst was a 6 week intensive boot camp type thing where Mike basically taught for 6 weeks the basics of learning to buy a business. Now, here's the thing. After 6 weeks, I knew what the next step was going to be because people will learn in the 6 weeks and they would still need help when they actually get a deal in hand. So I asked Mike, and I was like, because I knew he had shut down his program. Like, he's not out here trying to be a guru, okay? So I was like, hey, here again, would you be open to doing something, a little continuous? Because as people get deals, they will need some, they may want some hand holding. They may, like, I can't tell you, like, when you start talking to these brokers and getting stuff and getting documents and getting P&Ls and bank statements and all of that, at some point you may just feel like, oh my goodness, I didn't foresee this kind of freeze, okay? But having somebody that you can turn around and say, hey, do you mind taking a look at this for me? Um, I would, is this a good deal? Like this looks good, it smells good. Is it actually good? Now, during one of our sessions last year, we had somebody bring a deal that she had seen online. And when Mike saw it within minutes, he was like, yeah, no. I remember it was a FedEx deal. I'll give you that one. It was a
Yeah.
FedEx deal. And I remember Mike was like, yeah, no, you don't want to do that. And the person was like, but like, what about this deal could have told me that I shouldn't do the deal? To which he said, well, that's why you're here. Here is the thing. Beyond just the buy box, there are nuances that you get out of like 20 years of experience. Like the medicine, for example. Let's say you're in anesthesia, just because I'm an anesthesiologist, right? Sometimes you will see a patient and you go, mm-mm. And somebody will say, no, but look, the lab say this say this, and you're like, this person is a code waiting to happen, right? There are some nuances that you get from 20 years of experience that can't be put into a six-figure side gig challenge, okay? And for that reason, we now have what is called the inner circle. So the inner circle, we were able to bring it back. Inner circle is basically a mentoring chamber. That's what I'm going to call it, okay? It's a mentoring chamber where weekly you get to meet with Mike, and you get to bring your deals to him. And what we decided was that this time around, for those of you that have joined the Six Figure Side Gig Challenge, you will be able to apply to the inner circle and get the recordings of Catalyst for no additional expense. Okay? Now, I didn't even mention this to Mike because I was like, you know what? How about we sweeten this for these people? Okay. So number one, you get access to the inner circle with full mentorship with Mike. Now, I have worked with doctors long enough to know that a lot of you are terrified about the idea of venturing into business. Okay. You say things like, well, I'm not a business owner. I don't know how to look at financials. I don't know how to. And so I said to myself, what if once a week, separate from the inner circle sessions, for the first couple of weeks, I do a little like business primer session just for those of you who feel that, you know what, I'm like a deer in the headlights. I don't know this. This is like ABCs of business, period, right? So that then when you go to the inner circle sessions, you also have the recordings of the trainings. You don't feel like a fish out of water, but you're fully grounded, fully present, able to sort of own who you are in the room as a business buyer. Okay? Now, the inner circle is open for enrollment. I'm gonna show you real quick what it actually includes, and then we're gonna get to Q&A. Let me put it, let me show you right here. So we had the, what's it called? Let me zoom in here. This is my Catalyst Canva page. All right. So this is inner circle, okay? This hasn't changed. So weekly coaching calls, hands-on guidance with deal negotiation, legal matters, ongoing access to big deal machine, which is the software that you just saw Mike use. That's his deal sourcing software. The value of that is $800 a month. Now, Mike has a document vault where he basically has like templates of contracts and different things. I always have difficulty explaining what is in it because it's just a lot.
So much in it.
Okay. Cost him over $100,000, he says, to get the documents that are in that vault. And I tell you, you don't need it at the beginning, but as you start to mature in your deal making journey, you're like, oh yeah, I need a letter of intent, template, and you go grab it, right? That you're gonna get access to. That one alone, I'll say, is easily $5,000, just the access into the vault. This one right here, opportunity to partner directly with Mike and the other inner circle members on real deals. I call this one priceless. Let me give you an example. Just last week, I came on the inner circle call and somebody mentioned a deal. And I was like, I've seen that deal before. And I listened, and sure enough, it was the same deal. Well, guess what? In this particular instance, I did not opt for this route, okay? But let's pretend that I actually did, okay? I could have decided to partner with this person, also a physician, on this deal. This was a pediatric practice down in Georgia, okay? So when you are in a circle of like-minded individuals, you could get partners in deals. Somebody asked earlier in the chat, how do we fund these deals? How do we get the money to fund these deals? Guess what? One of the very significant options is to work with partners. Okay. So if you don't have the cash yourself for a down payment, so the answer really is that, most people use loans, but if you don't have the cash saved for the down payment, you can partner with individuals. You can bring a deal and they bring the money. There are different ways you can do this, but how better to build that network of other deal makers than to be in a well curated circle called the inner circle? Okay. Now, this other one right here, a 1 hour recorded wealth profile strategy session with Mike over Zoom. So when you work with Mike, normally for a half day corporate consulting session, he's paid $25,000. Okay. So this is not like chump change, but this is an actual, wealth profile strategy session that he's agreed to do, to those who join the inner circle, that is actually recorded. So you can go back to it and, actually plan out your life or whatever. Um, and then this one right here, a 1 hour deal review. This is actual money that will be leaving our pockets when you do this because Mike's M&A attorney charges $600 an hour to, to do deals. So, you can have whoever you want on your team, but at least if you know that Mike's attorney is there, and you have a 1 hour deal review included, this means that we're actually working to see you help to basically help you get to the end of your transaction. And then of course, the community, like I said, recently, oh, and then of course, the powerful business network. We had a session a couple of weeks ago where an SBA lender, and tomorrow we'll talk about the SBA. An SBA actual lender came to Inner Circle and talked about nuances. I mean, I took notes because I'm currently in the middle of a transaction and I needed all that information. And he was able to come and share with us what they're actually looking for to make yourself bankable. Okay, so if you would like to um, to consider joining the inner circle, okay? I have put a link down here below. There's a link right here. This link is the same one that we use at the Catalyst boot camp. But more importantly, before you do that, and there's a reason that I have said that, before you do that, just hit my name on this Zoom chat and just send me a quick DM and say, I'm checking it out, okay? The reason is I want to make sure that anybody who has questions gets their questions answered. Nobody like, says, I can't do this because, I don't have the money or whatever. If you want to get this done, I want to make sure that we have provided you all the resources. We have funding resources, we have multiple options that I don't want to go into now, so we have enough time for the Q&A. But if you want to do this, just send me a quick like DM on the chat right now and say I'm checking this out, and then go to this link right here and get the details. All right. So let's go to the questions. Let's go to the questions that a few of you asked. So somebody asked questions here. Okay. So Kingsley asked, how do we get the money to buy these businesses? I will talk about that tomorrow, but I think that since Mike is here, I'll let Mike chime in because Mike is only here today.
Yeah, so I mean, we're if you're looking for stuff for ways to get the money for the businesses, a lot of people finance through the SBA.
Mhm.
The SBA, depending on industry experience, they're going to require 5 to 10% down, which is going to be the least amount of any lender. All right. They're going to they'll fund your deal for 10 years. They'll fund you up to $5 million at one time. With that being said, they'll fund one deal for 5 million bucks. They'll fund two deals for $2.5 million a piece. They'll fund five deals for $1 million a piece, right? The most money you can have active under SBA is $5 million at one time, though. So I like them. The paperwork it's about like any other loan, right? But any other government backed loan. But, the banks love doing them because the SBA is going to guarantee 70% of that loan. So, in theory, the bank's main concern is how are we going to get even, right? How are we going to, if Chiagozie borrows $1 million a day, how are we going to get even? Making money is just an afterthought, right? But if they give her $1 million, they want to know that they can get their money back first. The SBA will underwrite that loan up to 70%, which means if Chiagozie pays for 3 years and she doesn't pay another nickel, the federal government will pay the bank back for that loan. So the bank is off the hook after the borrower's paid 30%, which makes these deals appetizing for the banks because it lowers their risk. So SBA is the route that I would pursue if I were you guys. Um, the criteria is it's not real bad. They're not loaning money on your credit, really. They're loaning money on the cash flow of the business. So, can the business pay the note is what they're looking at. Now, granted, you can't have a 400 credit score and can't finance a Snicker bar, but as long as you've got 650, 680 plus, you're going to be just fine.
That's a good one. Okay, guys, next question. Feel free to post your questions in the chat. While Mike is here, this is your chance to ask questions. Like I said, we'll go into numbers tomorrow, but whatever questions you have right now, this is your time to ask Mike. Or even other questions, any other, business questions.
Got a quiet group tonight, Chiagozie.
I do. I do. They're actually very quiet tonight. Those of you who were here yesterday know that it was not this quiet. All
So
right,
Kingsley
Kingsley's
asked, can we look
asking.
for deals out of town? Yes,
Mhm.
for sure. I own stuff in 9 different states. So your quarterback is going to be your main criteria there.
Yeah.
Tutu said, is seller financing a good option? It's a great option. That keeps the banks and the government and everybody else out of your business.
Yep. That is a
And
good option.
normally seller financing, you get better terms anyway.
Hmm. And for those of you who don't know what seller financing is, it's basically where you have the seller, where you pay the seller installmentally. See, I know my people. I love it.
It's owner financing, essentially.
So basically, it's where you're buying something from someone on. without paying them the full amount upfront, and you're basically paying them installmentally. You're making payments to them. So imagine that you bought a house, and instead of you getting a mortgage from a bank, the person that sold you the house takes the payments every month until it's paid off, or until the terms that you set in place. So we'll talk about that tomorrow as well. But I figured since it was brought up here that I should mention what that is, because some people don't know what that is.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Cool. You
Other
guys got any other
questions?
questions? Yeah.
Other questions? Other questions? Do all that. I think we did. Oh, Georgia. That was Georgia. Other questions? This is your chance to ask Mike. Like I said, he won't be here tomorrow. You better ask the questions while he's here. Maybe they want to ask you in inner circle.
All good. All right, cool.
All right. Okay. So, yeah. So, if you are checking out the inner circle, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. How long do you typically hold businesses for, Mike?
So that is a loaded question. I've had the tech company since ooh, 2001. So 24 years, 25 years. Um, some of the other stuff I've been in and out of in less than a year. I bought one last February and sold it at the end of September. So it just depends. I'm going to know what my goal is to get out of it when I buy it.
Mm.
I'm going to know, am I going to grow this and flip it, or am I going to add this to the portfolio and operate it?
Do you want to talk briefly about the arbitrage that happens when you buy at that buy box that you normally buy in? I don't think we got to that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's, if I can buy something and add, if I can 2x it or 3x it in the first 18 months, I'm going to buy it at a 3 or 4x multiple, and I'm going to sell it again at an 8x.
Because the more profit a business makes, the higher the
The higher
multiple
the
it
multiple.
sells
Yep.
for. Yeah. And
Yep.
again, tomorrow, like I said, tomorrow will be a numbers day. So we'll talk about multiples. We'll talk about, we'll talk about profit and loss statements. We'll talk about multiples. We'll talk about the financing. I kind of front and back loaded it because I felt, you know what, let's not crowd today, and let's give people enough time to ask you questions, Mike. Um, so next question here is, what are you looking at in the business to know if you're keeping it long versus short term? Or
If I'm
short.
going to keep it long term, it's something I'm interested in, or something that I can bolt on to what I already got going on.
Mm,
Short term, it's just, I know I can make some money here. I know I can grow this. I see the opportunity. I'll buy it, grow it, and then sell it off.
nice.
But most of the stuff I'm not super interested in either.
That's a good question. I've never asked you that question.
Nope, you're
And
not.
I've been asking lots of questions.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one. All right, other questions. There is one question that is burning at the back of your mind that you're thinking that may be a that like they may be thinking that's a stupid question. This is your chance, okay? Ask your question. Ask your question. All right. While you're typing, because I know some of you are typing your questions right now, that's what usually happens. I'm going to remind you about the inner circle. So if you would like to join us in the inner circle, it is literally like you bring your deal. So you go online, you search for the deals, you bring the deals that you have in hand. Mike's able to look through them very quickly and point out questions, ask questions, poke holes, like what is this going on here? What's that going on there? Let me tell you an actual story. So a couple of years ago, maybe I think it was 2023. I'm getting old now. 2023. I had this deal in hand. It was a landscaping company. It was a landscaping company, and I was really excited about it. Even my dad was excited about it because he came to see the deal with me, and we got it under contract, under LOI, as we say. And during the due diligence period, the accountant and the attorney noticed something that I hadn't taken seriously before. So the sellers had told us that, everybody was a contractor. I mean, I figured, okay, yeah, sure. But then when the accountant and the attorney looked at it, they said, well, hold on. In Maryland, if you try that, this is a landscaping company, they actually should not be contractors. They should be employees. And I was like, okay, so fine, we make them employees or whatever, but I didn't think it was a big deal. But by the time they did the math, it was a big deal. But I was like, are you serious right now? Like, this deal's gonna die for this thing that I thought wasn't that big. And honestly, I was gonna find a way to press through with the deal because I really liked the place and it had a good quarterback and it had all the things. And so one day I just happened to be on the phone with Mike because he had an event coming up. And I was like, oh, by the way, I have this thing in hand. What do you think? And I shared with him the details of that deal, like less than a minute conversation. And he was like, on to the next one. I was like, are you serious right now? And I mean, I had to drop the deal because now the accountant, the attorney, and your mentor are saying, on to the next one. You're not going forward with that deal. But here is where the kicker was. If I had asked Mike that question before I paid $28,000, I would have been a happy camper.
Right.
Okay. So when you're thinking about, possibly investing in mentorship, particularly with acquisitions, don't only think about, oh, what is the cost? Think about what risk you are averting, okay? So now I complained that I'd already paid 28,000 on that deal. However, what Mike saved me was not 28,000. What he saved me was $1 million. It was 1.1 million that I would have bought that business for if I had gone ahead, and it would have been a real problem, okay? So let's take the question, how long does it take to typically close a deal?
I answered it there. 6 months for something on market and 12 months for something off market.
Would you mind just clarifying what you mean by on and off market for those
Yeah, if
who
it's
are not
listed with a
familiar?
broker, it's on market. If it's not listed with a broker, it's off market, right?
Yeah,
It's going to take 6 months because the broker is going to kind of herd the seller along to get the documents together.
yeah.
Whereas off market, I mean, it's going to be like herding cats.
And that's actually something that you go in depth into in the Catalyst Bootcamp material. How to find, well, we've touched on, finding stuff on like Biz Buy Sell, Big Deal Machine, but how to find off-market deals, how to find deals that aren't even on the market to reduce your competition, the tools that you use, the apps, the software, staying organized, what industries to avoid, like the ones that you don't even look at, the ones that you think are trending and the ones that aren't. I'm kind of playing in my head that
Yep.
whole boot camp right now. Um, and and then of course the financing piece. So on the financing piece, the creative financing piece, and one of the things that I like when Mike teaches this stuff is that he goes into, so somebody actually taught a session and gave like 150 ways to finance a deal. But the reason that I like it when Mike teaches it is that he teaches you 10 ways to do a deal. Because guess what? When you hear 150, all you hear is overwhelm. When you hear 10, now you're like, okay, I can learn 10 and I can get good at these 10 because these are the 10 that people are actually using. So we're not here to collect theory. You're here to actually learn from people that are in the trenches, people that are doing deals. My close on a deal. When was your closing? I think it was, I know you had one during one of our sessions. Oh my goodness, it's been a couple of months already.
Yeah.
It's been
We've
a
done
few
a
months
few
already.
of them this year. So
What do you say?
I got another one that I hope to get across the finish line before
December,
the end of the month, but they're going to have to hurry if I am.
if you do that. Yeah. So like this is not theory. We're not here to like teach you, the Krebs cycle that you will never use. Okay? It's actual practical things that can actually get you getting deals done and getting them past the line. So I'm gonna put that link in the chat one more time. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. We will be sending out emails and reminders about these things. Um, but tomorrow. Yes, there is a monthly fee after the entry fee. It's at the bottom of the page. So you see, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, it says it down there. There's an entry fee and there is a monthly fee. So you can stay as long or as little as you want. It's not to tie you down to any contract or anything. The entry fee is just an entry fee. So just to make sure that the people that we're getting in there are actually serious about doing deals, it's not we're not, there to just make you feel happy and do nothing. We want it to be that you actually come with the intention of buying a deal. And I mean, if you're here today, you probably are. But I just say that to say, like, that's just our way of making sure that the people in the room are serious people, are actually serious about buying a business and buying a business soon. So that way they're not asking questions that they don't actually intend to act on. And then the monthly fee is basically to keep it as open. You can come and you can go whenever you wish. There's no like, oh, you have to be there a year, you have to be there 2 years, you have to be there 6 months. No. Once you feel like you've gotten what you need, you can turn it off. Yeah. But great question, by the way, Catherine. All right. Okay, great question. Any other questions about Inner Circle? Everything is on the page. It's all the way at the bottom. Just make sure you read all the way down to the bottom, please. Please, please, please. Make sure you read all the way down to the bottom so that there's no confusion about anything. Okay. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. We will see you all tomorrow. So tomorrow is going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. So we're back to the 7 p.m. that we started with. 7 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you all, and we're going to be talking about numbers. It's going to be all about numbers, the fun way to look at numbers, my fun part. That's the part that I enjoy. All right, guys, take
All
care.
right. Thank you.
Bye.